Hello, I'm Ed Rabyd, otherwise known as the Rabyd Atheist, a former pastor turned atheist, now compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. Feel free to like or dislike the videos you see fit, so feel free to hit those buttons. Feel free to comment below, and I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel and hit your notification bell for more content as it is released. You've already seen the thumbnail, you've already heard the title, so let's dive into it. My basic question today is, realistically, if Roe v. Wade is overturned, what will happen? What becomes the next step? Okay, and what overall will happen? Now, I want a couple disclaimers. This is my opinion. I'm not saying I'm going to be right. I'm saying I'm taking my poli-sci degree and some of the things I learned there, looking at the political landscape, looking how theoretically this is supposed to work, but then looking also how the government really works. Okay, and coming up with a strategy, and I'm going to look at it politically from both sides, okay, because I want, because I think we need to understand what the next steps of pro-life and the next step of pro-choice would be in such a case. Well, realistically, if Roe v. Wade is overturned, that doesn't mean that abortion disappears from the United States. What will happen is, at that point, it becomes a state's issue. In other words, each state will decide their own approach to abortion. This is what made Roe v. Wade so revolutionary, is it got rid of that and made it federal law, made it a federal understanding that a woman has a right to her privacy, and so therefore you can't prosecute her for abortion, which is a medical procedure. This is what Roe v. Wade did. Okay, well, if that's removed, then a woman's right to privacy is removed, which for me as a libertarian has some serious shit applications that I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole right now. It's just, what are we doing here? So at that point, politically speaking, and I'm going to deal with another possibility here, but I want to deal with this one first. Politically speaking, those that are pro-choice will now have to expend a shit ton more resources to fight this state by state. And there's going to be some states that are not battleground. They're clearly, on the side of the crew that says pro-life. Okay, so with that said, that means that what are you going to do? Except fight it state by state. And from a political analyst point of view, that means you're going to have to spend a crap ton more resources to fight that fight. Okay? Doing stuff at the Supreme Court level means you have to focus on one entity. Okay? The court system usually just decision, appeal, ends Supreme Court. Supreme Court makes final decision, appeals process over, right? Who do you appeal to if you feel that the Supreme Court is wrong? Good luck. You have to appeal at that point to the people of the United States. Okay, so on the pro-choice side, the battleground now becomes state by state. Okay, and that's true for the pro-life crowd too, because even though they think overturning Roe v. Wade gets rid of all abortion in the country, that is just not true. Many states will still allow abortion. They'll still fund it. They'll still do what they do. New York, California, just two good examples, but there's going to be a lot of states that still allow abortion, or they'll limit it down. There's a lot of states that will say, yeah, we get it. They'll offer caveats like rape or incest or the life of the mother being in jeopardy, stuff like that. Or they'll cut it off at a certain time, 12 weeks, 16, whatever. What you're going to see is a hodgepodge of every state taking a different approach to the issue if Roe v. Wade is overturned. Now, here's the other possibility, and this is the possibility I think a lot of people on the left are afraid of, because it's not, at that point, just a question of getting Roe v. Wade overturned. There's a lot of people that are floating the idea that this conservative court is also in their decision going to redefine when life begins, okay? And if they do that, if they say life begins at conception, for instance, now all the state battles become moot, okay? Because they're basically saying at a federal level you can be prosecuted for having an abortion and it's murder, okay? It's murder, all right? So I think it's a remote possibility, because I think that's why they're spending so much time. If they're debating this issue in the hallowed halls of the Supreme Court, I think this is probably the thing that they're debating about. I think what a lot of the more level-headed justices are thinking, and I'm not saying that they're thinking right about the issue, I'm just saying from a political standpoint, they're a little bit more level-headed about it, okay? Right now, Congress is in charge of the Democrats, and so is the White House. If you make this decision and you also redefine life, the legislature is going to meet, pass a law that defines life and when it begins. It's going to head to the White House and it's going to become law. And they're going to quick like that. So I think from a political standpoint, the Supreme Court isn't always known for being the best politicians, because I think they sit in their black robes and they don't really think about the political implications of what they're thinking, because they're supposed to be neutral, which is a load of shit. So what we have here in the United States is an issue of whether or not they're going to push it to the next logical thing, which is define when life begins. And I think a lot of more of the level-headed, more politically minded justices say we can't do that, because if we do that, then the Democrats almost assuredly will meet in Congress, pass a law that adds how many ever justices to the bench to get the thing flipped on their side. And where does that end? The Republicans get elected next time, they add more justices so they get the Supreme Court on their side. You know, it's like, I think 9's a good number. The Democrats have really lost the political battles over the Supreme Court over the last couple decades, and that's why we're in the mess we are. That, and I mean, you know, Ruth Bader Ginsburg made probably one major error, and that was not protecting her legacy. She should have stepped down when Obama was president so that a younger justice could have stepped in her place with her similar values, and then she could have protected her legacy at least. It still would have been a 6-3 thing now, but it would have been a lot not as bad. It would have been a lot more debatable whether they could pull this shit off. Okay, so you know, the liberal side of the aisle and the Democrats have really, when it comes to the Supreme Court, they've really screwed up. The religious right, the pro-life people, the Republicans have been very, very good, politically speaking, in making sure that the court is packed with people that are going to be sympathetic to their viewpoint. I don't like this. I prefer a 5-4 court, okay? And then every once in a while it shifts, because then we get different kinds of decisions. But with the way it is now, and some of the younger justices being conservative, this could take a long time before this changes back the other way. So I think the more level-headed judges, if they're smart, will say, let's just overturn Roe v. Wade and then see what happens. Because if they overturn it, it's not like they're going to reignite the case again and then put it back in place if the Supreme Court shifts. They're going to need another new case that's like Roe v. Wade to get it back in there, okay? So it's a lot of work to overturn a case, and it's even more work once you've overturned a case to get it back in, just practically speaking. Now, there might be a lot of lawsuits that follow this that get to the Supreme Court level that allow, you know, something similar to Roe v. Wade being passed and the right to privacy of women being upheld again, okay? That's why when I see liberals like talking, you know, against privacy, like, you know, people need to have their medical records public, I'm like, you do realize that Roe v. Wade is based on privacy, right? And the privacy of a person, particularly a woman, not to have her medical records revealed. You know, this last 2 years has been like, you know, there's laws that say you can't have access to a person's medical records. It's a privacy issue. And it hinges on this. Well, if you get rid of that, holy shit. Like I said, probably a topic for another video. But, okay, so what would be the next step for the pro-life crowd if they win Roe v. Wade? Well, they're going to have to engage in the states-by-states battle too, but I'm going to tell you one thing that's going to automatically happen very, very quickly, everybody in the Bible Belt South, every state that's in the Bible Belt. We're talking Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, Texas, probably Tennessee, probably Oklahoma, and a few others that are very right-leaning. A lot of Midwestern states that are very right-leaning are going to pass laws against abortion. Okay, they're going to do it. Okay, with Roe v. Wade out of the way, they can move forward with their legislation to limit. Because right now, like in Texas, Abbott just executive ordered the thing, okay? And he can't maintain that as long as, once he steps down as governor, it's gone. That's the problem with executive orders, is they just don't last, okay? They shift with whoever controls the office. Legislation is much more ironclad, okay? Whether at the state or federal level, it's just much more ironclad. So it's not completely impervious, but it's much more ironclad. So they're going to have to fight to secure the victory, okay, because what could happen, and I've been looking at poll numbers, this is not a very popular decision by the Supreme Court. And when Abbott did what he did here in Texas, I looked at the poll numbers, and I'm like, well, yeah, Texans are kind of for this, but it's not as clear-cut a victory as the Republicans would like to think. I think they're missing the mark here. And I think this is the real problem, is it's going to make the nation more divided than it already is. Okay, we're already pretty much at each other's throats, and I don't know if liberals would go to war over a woman's right to choose, but they're damn sure going to get really, really irate. Because the rhetoric is just that, rhetoric. You're denying a woman's right to choose, or you're fighting for the right to kill your child. Regardless which side it is, it's rhetoric. Okay, it's just propaganda rhetoric. Nobody really talks rationally about this subject, and as I said in a previous video, I don't think there's any middle ground on it either. And what the Supreme Court is really doing is like kicking a hornet's nest. It's going to make it worse. It's going to make things really, really bad. And I don't think they really thought this decision through. If I was a Supreme Court strategist and I was trying to get this through, and I'm not saying I would, I'm just saying that if I was the strategist, this is what I would do. One, I would wait until either the White House or the legislature had shifted sides to mine, to being conservative and Republican, because then you can do the Roe v. Wade being overturned thing and protect it, okay? Right now, they could do it, but then the legislature and the president are going to take immediate action to secure whatever they can hold. They're going to do damage control immediately, just like that. And that's just not very smart. I don't really think that the conservative justices have been very intelligent here. It's a real bad political play. They may get what they want, but, there's, of course, a third option. I find it very suspicious that this leak comes out when it did. Whoever leaked the information is actually guilty of, like, a shit ton of crimes if they find out who it is. They can spend a lot of time in federal prison, okay, because these are private communiques. A lot of the justices have been threatened. We've had incidents, in various kinds. We've had people stalking these justices at their homes. And you have liberals actually backing these things up. And I'm like, well, hypocrite much? If storming the Capitol is an insurrection, threatening justices is also an issue of treason. You don't have to like the Supreme Court justices, but they are the powers that be. And there's a lot of things that could be done. So we gotta be careful here. But I also look at it as a political analyst because I'm looking at this, and I don't have a dog in the fight with the Republicans and Democrats. I vote Libertarian Party almost every time. But I look at it and I go, yeah, because Biden's popularity is in the shitter. Okay, it's down in the toilet. So the midterms are looking very, very bad for the Democrats. More bad than I think they want. They keep trying to put a pretty face on it, but I can tell based on the people in the background, they were worried. Up to a month ago, I think they were very worried. I mean, Biden's election and the victory in Georgia were the two bright spots for the Democratic Party in 2020. The rest of the election did not go. The Democrats weren't high-fiving coming out of the strategy room. They were thankful that they won the White House, but that was the only real major victory other than what happened in Georgia later. The rest of it was bad news for the Democratic Party, pretty much. The House got closer, the Senate got closer, local elections didn't go the way, gubernatorial elections went against them. It wasn't a good day. And so they're coming into the midterms, and they don't have any real good news. The economy's in the shit, the inflation's out of control, and that's because the federal government keeps spending way too much money. Even Democrats and liberal Democrats that understand this are saying, yeah, we need to stop fucking spending money and rein it in, because that's what's causing inflation. Anybody who's studied any kind of economics knows that the federal government and the central bank have a lot to do with whether inflation runs rampant or not. And if the federal government keeps spending money like a drunken sailor and putting more and more money into the economy, those dollars are worth less and less and less. That's just economic law in action. Okay, so the economy's in the shitter. It's not doing well. Inflation's very high. The common man, inflation is a tax on everybody. Okay, forget your class envy warfare. Okay, the poor suffer from an inflation, middle class, rich, everybody kind of suffers. Now, the rich suffer less and the middle class suffer less than the poor, but trust me, inflation hits the poor the hardest. And they're looking at this, well, I thought Biden was on our side, and they're losing ground, okay? The other thing is, Afghanistan was not a good withdrawal. COVID, I don't know, am I going to get blocked? The beer bug, a lot more people are getting infected, but a lot less people are dying, and that's just CDC numbers. What we're seeing is that the variants are coming out weaker and weaker as far as death toll, and I don't think, they're already estimating that like 100,000 Americans will be infected in the next year with the beer bug, and I don't think that that's gonna, so trying to gin up fear on that round, people are just not reacting to it. They've become anesthetized to it. They're not afraid of COVID anymore. Okay, they're just not. And then we have the Ukraine situation where we're not really involved, but it looks like the Ukrainians have definitely slowed down, if not in some places stopped the Russian advance. And they've done it on their own without our help, other than we give them weapons, and a few American soldiers have gone over there as private individuals, used to be soldiers, and they're fighting. And so there's not like this rapid call for us to get involved in the Ukraine-Russian war. So what's left for the Democrats? Well, let's be honest, this is a godsend. Because now the Democrats can go out there and say, yeah, see, we need to get you to the polls and protect the Congress, and because if we don't, these radicals are going to change the law. Well, up until now, the Democrats really hadn't had a good reason to go to the polls. This leak kind of makes it that way, which is why I think what the conservatives are going to do is they're going to try to connect this as, yeah, this didn't happen really. And if it did, it was just discussion among the justices. It wasn't any plan of action. And really, this is just made up fear by the Democrats. That's how they're going to probably play it. The Democrats are like playing this, like this is the thing that's going to motivate their voter base to get to the polls. Up until this point. So I got to play the devil's advocate at this point. Is it possible that a Democrat operative leaked this? Somebody working inside the Supreme Court leaked this? Because it would make a whole hell of a lot of sense from a political standpoint. Those are just my 2 cents and my thoughts. I could be very, very wrong. Okay, I'm just looking at it with what's possible and everything else. The thing is, overturning Roe v. Wade, and this is my final thoughts on, is not going to be the death nail to pro-choice position that everybody thinks it is. Roe v. Wade just makes it really easy to fight the pro-lifers. Because you can fight them at the federal level. You have to allow for abortion in every state, but it's still a joke. Like there's some states of the union that just have one abortion clinic for the whole state, okay, because they limit it and they do limited things. And like a lot of big cities that are more liberal have had to do their own thing. because the state wasn't going to back them up. So it's like, you got to remember, there was still a lot of fighting going on about this. It's just, it'll shift the battlefield, is what it'll do. It'll make it more of a state-by-state battle instead of a federal-level battle. And there's still going to be abortion in certain states. There's still going to be, some limitations on it in others. And there's going to be a lot of states, particularly more religious states, more right-leaning states, that are going to just plain out outlaw it or have very, very strict requirements. So that's kind of my 2 cents. And once again, thanks for stopping by, and appreciate it if you like, share, and subscribe. And hopefully I can convince you to be a rabid atheist like myself. In the meantime, this is Ed Rabyd, also known as the Rabid Atheist, signing off and wishing you a good day.